I've been talking. I didn't know that I was muted. Good evening, everybody. My name is Hussein Mahadi, and I'm the moderator for today's session on entertainment business and law. Good evening, hello, Monica, Daniel, Peace, Abu, Huraira, and Amina. Can we all hear me?
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, everybody. I trust you are all having a good day so far. Today's class is on entertainment business and law, and our topic for today is film business and law. We are supposed to have two mentors for today's session, but I just got informed a few minutes ago that one of our mentors won't be available. So we'll only be having Miss Amanda Ogwazu on the call with us today as our mentor. Our presenter for today's session is Fola Kemi, and our backup presenter is Ifeanyi. Once again, our topic for today is film, business, and law on the entertainment business and law mentorship and internship program. We are all welcome to JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program. This is week 1 and the first session we are having. So quickly before we call on our mentor to give us the insights, the introduction to the topic, I will be making a few announcements, and I urge everyone to pay attention. Okay, I'll start with telling us about the program. JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program is a quarterly program for students and young professionals across Africa. Our mentees are afforded the opportunities to access valuable advice, training, network, mentorship, internship, discussion forum, and industry updates and resource materials from experienced mentors. The program seeks to encourage continuous training, development, and evolution in Nigeria, Africa, and around the world. You can search for our videos on YouTube and Facebook with the hashtag JIIPCC Some of the objectives of the program is to provide easy access, guidance, training, and resource material for students and young professionals in Africa, to facilitate dialogue and network among experienced and less experienced practitioners and stakeholders, to transform mentees into mentors and leaders for the next generation, and to facilitate further mentorship, internship, scholarship, and job placements for the mentees. These are few of our objectives and what JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program is all about. We encourage mentees to share our flyers on their status regularly so that their friends that are interested can sign up for the program. And also, we also make this announcement every week that the 30-minute one-on-one session is always available after each session. You can reach out to me or any of the JIIPCC management and ask for the link. It's also on the screen, bit.ly/JIIPCPM. You can register and have a 30-minute one-on-one session with your favorite mentor, get hacks, secrets, live lessons, and directions from your favorite mentor. Okay, quickly, I'll be taking our mentor's profile for today. As we all know, we only have one mentor with us, who is Miss Amanda Ozuagba. Amanda Nioma Ozuagba is an entertainment lawyer, award-winning author, legal educator, consultant, public speaker, and legal podcaster. Founder of Dear Creator Podcast and the co-host of Legal Avenue Podcasts with Lola, OJ, and Mandy. She holds a degree in law, LLB, from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and was called to bar in 2017. She is currently a senior legal executive at Ebony Live Limited. As a public speaker and educator, she has facilitated many events, conferences, and webinars targeted at educating and enlightening entertainers, entrepreneurs, and creatives on the protection of their intellectual property rights and creative works. She has more than 8 years of experience in the entertainment industry. She starting out as a blogger, dancer, and PR expert for record labels before she was called to the Nigerian bar in 2019. She launched her consultancy firm called Goldswick Consults, which focuses on the entertainment and creative business with an interest to build more capable lawyers for the entertainment and creative industry. She launched a coaching network tagged Legal Coaching by Mandy for law students and young lawyers interested in a legal career within the entertainment industry. Thank you very much for joining us today. Please join me in welcoming our mentor for today, Ms. Amanda Ozuagba, to the call. I don't know if our mentor is on the call yet. Okay, I'll call on our mentor to give us. Okay, thank you very much for joining us and good evening once again. Before our mentor will start, I encourage all our mentees on the call to edit their name session on their Zoom application and also turn on their camera so that we can see your beautiful faces and your handsome faces. I'll be giving the floor to Ms. Amanda. Our topic for today is the film industry, the film business and law, and we want to get insights and an introduction of the topic from you, Ma. Can you hear me, Miss Amanda?
Yeah, I can.
Sorry,
Sorry,
thank you very much.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Ma. Yes, we can hear you.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma.
We can hear you.
Good evening, ma.
So I'll take like 10-15 minutes to just race through the film industry. So within this section, I want to hear more from you guys, answer questions that you guys have, more than just me speaking. So if within what I'm going to say, you have any questions, can jot it down. If you already have questions or joining the section, that's beautiful. You can add. So I'll just take 10 to 15 minutes, might not even be up to that, but discuss the film industry, the different stages of filming and different stages of production and what the rules of lawyers are in each of these stages. So everybody, I want to believe that everybody already has legal background, so I'll try to be what's the word? I'll speak more of like a layman than legal sense. Permit me with that. So basically, there are 3 levels, or there are 3 sections of production, which is pre-production, production, and post-production. Now, every film that you watch, every film that you see out there, go through these 3 stages. Without a pre-production stage, you can't go to a production stage. And when you get to a production stage, you must go to post-production. So I'll explain what each of those stages is. The one everybody knows is the filming. The one set, actors are there, we have cameras, we have crew members, that's the production. That's where almost everybody knows what goes on there. Pre-production is now before, like the word says, pre-production, before we get to that filming stage, before production. So within pre-production is when you can't hear me well.
I can hear you.
I can hear you clearly.
Okay. Please, if at any point you guys stop hearing me, just let me know. So during pre-production, like I said, is before the filming, before production. So in pre-production stage, that's where the story is conceived, that's where the story is developed, that's when the story is written, that's where different production partners are found, especially when the story is from a writer or a director or a production company that really doesn't have the finances to run or shoot the movie on its own. So mind you, there are different types of productions, or there are different types of films, or different types of I have to use the word production that you see. There's short film, there's feature film. Feature film is the typical movie you watch, 90 minutes and above. That's feature films. There are series, there are scripted series, there are non-scripted series. Non-scripted series are series like there are reality series, they scripted to a certain instance. But scripted series are series like Vampire Diaries, where it's an actual drama or an actual crime movie, but there's series and there's limited series. So because of the finances and the money that goes into making each of these, it will be easier for a production company or a writer or a director to shoot or produce a short film on his own with little or no external help. But when it comes to feature films or series or limited series, the burden of the budget might be a lot. Now, within the pre-production stage is where you look for your financiers, you look for other bigger production companies or streamers like Netflix and Prime Video to help enlighten the production. And enlightening your production is by saying, oh yes, we've read the story or gone through what you have and we like it. So this is how much we're going to put in, this is how much you're going to put in, this is what our IP is going to look like, whether we're buying the IP totally, whether we're going to share it. All of that goes on in pre-production. So like I said, if pre-production is not settled and is not done, there cannot be a production. So pre-production, just a look at pre-production is where the story is brought up, the idea, the story is written, you stay below, writers come in, you look for your financiers, you look for directors that share your vision, and all of that happens in pre-production. Now within pre-production, predominantly the role of a lawyer there is to ensure that whoever you're representing is well protected. And just like landed properties or houses or lands where there's you have to like go through, I don't know the exact word, like, but when you want to buy a house, you go to Ministry of Lands and do search and find out if the title is right. Within film industry, there's something called chain of titles, and that's to ensure that a particular producer or production company who claims to own the movie actually owns it. And all of that starts from pre-production stage. So pre-production stage, lawyers there to ensure that the writers that are coming on board are signing agreements and they're signing their rights over to the production company or whoever has the idea or whoever instituted the entire production or the entire situation at that point. You're also there to ensure if the writers want something special, just ensure that the interest of the person you're representing, whether the writer or the production company, is protected. Now, mind you, throughout this conversation, I'll be coming more from the production angle, or production company producer angle. So within that pre-production is also, like I said, where you have the agreement set out, where you have a lot of negotiations as to what you're bringing on board, if you're looking for financiers, if you're looking for production partners, if you're looking for streamers, oh, this is what we have. There are a lot of negotiations and rough work that goes on there. So, but the work of the lawyer begins from that point because your chain of title starts from when the story is even an idea down to at each point their intellectual property being created. So at each point there has to be an agreement showing that you're transferring those rights to the production company or to the producer. Now, when the pre-production is done, is when you have your script ready, you have either the finances to move your budget, like you have your full budget on lock, you have your maybe streamers sometimes come at the end. For bigger production companies, usually have streamers like Netflix. When I say streamers, I mean Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple, and all of these guys at the beginning because they already have that reputation, so it's easy to get them. But for smaller brands or people that are just coming up, it's usually at the end when the movie is ready. Now, once your script is ready and you have fixed a date with production partners, or if you're doing it alone, or if you have financiers, or if your loan from the bank has been approved for you to go ahead and shoot. Once that is done and you fix the date, it's crossed over to production. Now, the beginning of production is casting and finding the right crew members to use. So at that beginning, throughout production, what the role of a lawyer is predominantly is getting out the crew and cast agreement. Crew and cast agreement, if there any equipment that will be rented, and equipment rental, insurance, which is very, very important, production insurance to protect the production, the cast, producers, everybody. Production insurance is also gotten within that stage. Also is within that stage that if there are other maybe collaborators or people that you reach sponsorship deals with, like most people will notice at this point because I don't think it's like intelligently hidden nowadays, but when you're watching a movie, you know when certain brands sponsor that movie. So it's at this production stage that most of them come in. Some come in during pre-production so that they're easily put in or easily tailored into the script. But some of them come in during production season. So production, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
I can hear you.
I can hear you, ma'am.
Okay, all right, I'll continue. So during production or during filming is when all of that happens. You have your invoices going in and out. So during production, more than ever, is when documentation is highly important because we have to ensure that everybody on set, everybody that stepped their leg, that stepped their foot on set, or everybody that is involved in the shooting, no matter how minute it might be, has an agreement or is under a company that has an agreement. So most times extras, people just go ahead to get talent companies to bring in extras. So you ensure that your agreement with that talent company is tight. If there are assistants on set, ensure that somehow they are fixed under someone's agreement. They don't have to be, you cannot, at this point, you cannot leave anybody that is on set or that is contributing to the production without an agreement or without their interest being covered under one agreement or the other. So production stage ends when the filming is wrapped. Once they've wrapped principal photography and everybody is out and about, you cross over to post-production. Now post-production is another heavy lift. Post-production is when your movie or whatever has been shot is being cut, is being edited. This is the stage where if there are promises is made to your sponsors or to your financiers, you have to ensure that everything is being incorporated because sometimes they'll say they want their logo or they want bureau of their establishment to be shown. You have to ensure that you pass all those special requests to the editors. So you have to ensure that everybody, like the editors, already know what they are supposed to do. Also, at this stage is when music. At this stage is when you license the music. At this stage is when you license your music. At this stage is when you sorry, 1 minute. I'm having a meeting. You're banging on the door. Hi guys, sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. So at this stage, like I was saying, at this stage is when the music guys are taken care of. If there's any artwork, if there's any footage that was involved in the production, release forms are set out. Now, music licensing is one of the heavy parts of post-production. You have to ensure that every sound used on the production, whether if it's an original sound and it's covered by the agreement you're giving your the guy editing or doing music, sorry, the term just left my head. But if the agreement covers it, fine. But if there's any commercial music that you use, you have to license, you have to send a license agreement, you have to get every agreement at this point signed and sealed. Now, once post-production is done, your trailer is ready, the fixed date for release. Literally, almost your work as a lawyer is almost done. Now, the final thing you have to do now is when the movie is out, before it's released to the public, you watch the movie. So you just go through the movie, you go through the footage to confirm that there's nothing that is hanging around the corner. There's no song that was used that you guys didn't clear. There's no art or footage or anything or anybody that crossed by or maybe while shooting, which is a bit unprofessional, but while shooting they captured the brand and they've not cleared it. So you're watching the production or you're watching the movie or watching the series or anything before you come out to ensure that all your paperwork is complete. Then the movie comes out. And by God's grace, you don't have anything to fight. If there's anything that you need when the movie comes out, you might have one or two battles to fight around the corner. Now, another aspect of the film business that a lawyer gets involved in very well is during distribution. Now, if like I said earlier, if you're not a big production company that has streamers on board from the beginning, and you have to like look for streamers, or your movie is going to cinema and all of that. If it's going to cinema, before you even start distributing, you have to censor. So you have to go to, I don't know that I should mention this part because it'd be tricky. You have to go to NFDCD, that's Nigerian Film, TV and Censorship Board, to apply to them to censor your movie, say what, like whether it's 13 floors or 15 floors or 7 or 18 floors and all of that. And when they do that, it's a criteria before you can send out your movie to cinema. But like I said, distribution is another heavy, not like heavy, but it's another part of a lawyer's job. If there are streamers involved, then you're negotiating license deals, you're negotiating Netflix license or Prime Video license deals, or you're negotiating a distributor agreement with maybe the likes of Film One or any other product and distribution company that is around that is already involved or has gotten involved with distributing the movie for the people that you're working with, or the production company or the producer. So yeah, I don't know if that's impacting, but that's like an overview of what the business is like and the roles of lawyers in practical things within the film industry. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So
Yes, we
at
can,
this
ma'am.
point, if there are any questions based on what I said, or any questions I already had before you joined, this is the right time to actually ask. Hello?
Good evening, ma. Good evening, ma.
Good evening.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah. So you talked about the importance of licensing a music before you use it in your movie. So like what happens like in a situation wherein let me say a movie producer let me say honestly forgets to, or you omit licensing a particular music in his movie. So what are the consequences that is attached to that mistake? Yeah,
So
thank you.
the owner of the music, or whoever has the right to use it, has the ability, or then within their right, to sue you. But then in practical terms, what happens is that they reach out to you and they say, "Oh, you use our music. You don't know whether this was a conscious decision or not, but you have to do the right thing." Now, why it's advisable for you to not fall into that is that if the movie had a very mad rollout, had a good rollout, or had 1 week or 2 weeks mad numbers at cinema or in Netflix, they are going to start asking for outrageous things. They're not even going to look at the fact that, okay, this money that is being made is probably not coming to you directly, or getting all the money. So you're supposed to try to sort that out. But at that stage, if that happens, they'll reach out to you, and then you just have to reopen the conversation and find a middle ground. But if you're not able to secure the licensing deal post the production coming out, what happens is that they have every right to actually sue. And what will happen in, like I said, practical sense, when they are suing, they are going to add the streamer as a party to that suit. And you don't want that to happen because you have a reputation to protect. And you also have more movies you're going to bring out. So if a streamer has already flagged you as controversial or always having issues, or your legal team is not careful enough or intricate enough to not meet certain things, it's not good for your business. So you have to try your best to get a middle ground between, if you're lucky, not the outrageous demands, but if you're unlucky and the outrageous demands, you just have to find the middle ground and sort it out as soon as possible.
Whatever. Thank you.
Okay.
I thank you very
This-
much, Miss Amanda. I was thanking you earlier. I think my mic has a problem. For the
Okay.
overview on the topic. Thank you very much. I think we still have one mentee that is raising her hand, so we'll give her the floor to ask her question before we proceed.
Okay. I also have
Chidera.
sorry,
Okay.
there's a question in the chat box. I just feel like to answer it first before we
All
continue.
right.
Philemon. So the person asked, have you asked, do a lawyer seek authorization before using a particular sound or music in a movie, or after the usage informs the owner? No, you're supposed to seek permission before. So all of this I'm giving a practical terms now. What happens during production is that the moment you guys wrap filming and you have entered post-production, the sound engineer, or not sound engineer, the person, your music scorer, exactly, that's the word. The person handling the scoring for music, that's editing and doing all the sound, and your director will send you a list of songs that they are intending to use based on different things. Now you go out and find the right owners, which could be hard. So it's always important for you to have one or two contacts in publishing companies or certain record labels. So if you have someone in Sony Music Publishing, for example, you can reach out to them and say, sorry, or excuse me, do you have rights to this song? If you don't, do you know someone that might? Or you just do your research and find the companies, but you have to reach out to each and every one of them. Even if one song has 15 writers represented by different parties, you have to reach out to every single one of them to ensure that you obtain the rights and you clear the song. Now, anyone that you're not able to clear, or the money that they are calling, the license fee they are calling is more than your budget or what the production company or the producer can afford, or you just can't reach them, you advise the music scorer or the director to drop that song from the list and replace it with something else. Can replace it with an original score, something composed itself, can replace it with another song that's easier for you to get. But it's advisable. What you're supposed to do is obtain those rights, obtain the permission, speak to the person before you use the song, not even after. Because downside to it that sometimes you use songs in certain things that the moment you're not able to clear that song, and you go back to tell the editor or the scorer or the director that sorry, this song we cannot get. The song is so much of a perfect fit that they will have an issue taking the song out. So then you're forced to either find other ways to do that, or inshallah they use it and they hope that the right owners no longer use it or they don't notice, something like that. But it's advisable, you're supposed to get it before. Sorry, before you use it. Sorry. Next question.
Okay, good evening, Ma. Can you hear
Yeah.
me? Okay, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
I have just 3 questions. The first one was, could you please throw a little more light on the chain of title that you referred to earlier? And then I wanted to ask if the lawyer is the one also responsible for like reimbursing both cast and crew, like drafting agreements or anything that would state what each member or each cast or crew member is entitled to when the movie has been released. And then the third question is Netflix a distribution company in the sense that you were talking about when you were talking about distribution? Thank you.
Okay. So I'll start from the last and go forward. So no, Netflix is not a distribution company. I think the two major distribution companies I know in Lagos is Film One and I think Blue Picture. I'm not sure, but Film One is one of the biggest. Netflix is a streaming platform, so they are not distributors. Now the distribution company, if you're a first time production company or if you're still like you're not up there, you're not a big production company, go through these distributors that try to sell your movie or try to pitch your movie to Netflix, Amazon Prime, anyone that picks it up, then you now start negotiating with Netflix. But most times, like I said, if you're a smaller brand, you go to a distributor. If you're a bigger brand that you've already had your movie on Netflix and all of these platforms, it's easy to just call them up and say, oh, I have another thing coming up. Would you be interested? We're not going to cinema. We just want to go to streaming platforms straight. And that is that. Now, yes, the lawyer is the person that drafts all the agreements for the cast and crew. Now, I'll try to correct emotion. So at the moment in Nigeria, we don't do so much of back end profit. So back end profit is like you said, what they will get after the movie is out, like when the movie starts streaming, the money that they will get or percentage, all of that is not a thing in Nigeria yet. Now that's not to say that there are not few companies that have done that in the past, but they did that for really big actors, probably someone within the likes of R&D and the veterans in the business. So back end is not a thing, but generally every contract First of all, every contract that has to be production goes through a lawyer. Now, the cast and crew agreement, the negotiation most times is handled by the lawyer in charge of the production. Sometimes negotiation is not. Sometimes the production company or the producer feels they have upper hand speaking to the person directly to agree to what they want. So they speak to you, understand your schedule of, okay, this is person's name, this is role, these are the dates, these photo shoot dates, this table read, this rehearsal dates, and these are the fees. And just fill it in and make the agreement. Why sometimes you have to stand there and negotiate based on how much they told you the budget is for this role and how much the person is willing to accept. Now, chain of title. Chain of title is simply a chain in the non-literal sense to prove ownership of a movie. So like I said, I'll use landed properties, I'll use land, for example. When you want to buy a land or you want to buy a house, let me just use land. When you want to buy a land, you go and do investigation of the title to know who have owned it at each point, how the ownership of the land passed down to the current owner. And if at any point there's any discrepancies or there's any point where it was unclear what happened or it was gifted and there's no agreement or it wasn't registered, you know the title is not so good. And if there's nothing about that title of the land office, you know the title is bad. Now with chain of titles, what happens is when streaming platforms come, they need, like I said, they need to see an order showing that you actually own this movie. So each right involved at each point, every right that has been created or contributed was passed down to you. So every single thing. So each of these agreements forms a chain, and the chain is what's called chain of title. Your writers agreement, right? Story consultants, story contributors, your co-production agreement, your cast agreement, crew agreement, rental agreement, release forms, your sponsorship agreement, post-production agreement, all of that forms a chain of title. So chain of title is literally like a chain of documents proving that you absolutely own the rights in this movie. Hope that clears it for you.
Thank you, Mark. Could I just ask who is the chain of title? Is it the producer that has
The what?
Is it the producer that has the chain of title, or rather that has final ownership? I don't
So
know.
it depends.
Okay.
It depends. It could be at the end of the day, a streamer could own the intellectual property. Do you understand? So chain of title is like just the intellectual property, but chain of title is proof to show that at each point you owned the right. Now it could be the producer, it could be the production company. Producer in the sense that if you know that your company, there's a one-man person that collected loan or has a financier, no problem. It could be typically it's usually production company that owns the chain of title. Sometimes it could be the financier that says, okay, yes, I'm going to give you the entire money you need, but I'm going to own all of the intellectual property. So that chain of title is transferred from the producer or the production company that has originally captured everything and is transferred to the financier. So at each point, to be different persons that owns it or that own it, but typically it's usually production company or the producer when it's a one-man business that owns the chain of title.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amanda. I'll be giving the floor to our mentee that will be presenting. Kindly know that you have 15 minutes to make your presentation. Fola Kemi is our presenter for today. You can share your screen while you're presenting. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. So just give me a second. Let me share my screen. Okay, I want to confirm if you all can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yes, we can.
All right, fine. Good evening, everybody. My name is Alo Folakemi, and I'm going to be the presenter for the first group, and we're talking about film business and law. So we have 8 points, which we are going to discuss today. And we're going to talk about introduction, ownership, film financing, royalties, distribution, infringements, contracts, and then we're going to talk about the conclusion. So I'll start with the intro. The Nigerian film industry which is popularly known as Nollywood, is one of the most biggest and the most vibrant film industries in the world. In fact, if you Google it and search online, you'll see that we're the second biggest film production company in the world in terms of the amount of movies we produce per year. And in the beginning, Nollywood first emerged in the 1990s, where while we were growing up, we would have like DVDs and CDs, and these were the things that we would watch instead of going to like traditional cinema. So that's how Nollywood developed, and our stories were more African themed, African central, focused more on family, focus more on our values. So that was how Nollywood developed till now that we now have like streaming platforms and streaming services, which are very popular nowadays. Okay, so Nollywood films are distributed through various channels like cinema, television, networks, and various video distributions, which I have already talked about. I'm going to go to the next slide now. We're going to talk about copyright ownership. So copyright ownership is one of the most contentious and very, very controversial in the world. In the US Copyright Office defines copyright as a type of intellectual property that protects original works of authorship as soon as an author fixes the work in a tangible form of expression. So copyrights can be books, can be audios, can be sound, can be anything basically. And copyright ownership is when copyright ownership is when filmmakers get contracts and get licenses to be able to actually use works of authors. For example, if a Chinua Achebe book now, or a book by Wole Soyinka is going to be turned into a film, the filmmaker will reach out to the estate of Chinua Achebe or to Wole Soyinka himself and say, oh, hey, we want to use your book and turn it into a film, turn it into a series. And the contracts will be drawn up and they will get the correct license. So in every stage of production, when filmmakers want to use like the authorship of an author, they have to go through the right means of, first of all, reaching out to the author. We can't just use anyone's work without first getting the correct license. So according to the Copyright Act of 2004, a copyright does not vest in an author forever. The first schedule says that when it comes to literary works, music, and any other also audiovisual work, the duration for a copyright is 70 years after the end of the year in which the author dies. But when it comes to cinematograph films, which is what we're discussing today, the copyright lasts for 50 years after the end of the year in which the work was first published. So for audio, sound, visual, it's 50 years, but for film, for audio, sound, and visual, 70 years, but for cinematograph films, is 50. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so Section 1, Sub 1 of the Copyright Act of 2004 is very specific on the categories of works that deserve IP protection. And these have been listed in this slide as shown, which are literary works, musical works, artistic works, cinematograph films, sound recordings, works of broadcast. And we also have types of intellectual property rights. For context, intellectual property can be defined as works of the human mind, and they can be inventions, they can be authorships, they can be books, they can be anything as long as it's created by the human mind and turned into something tangible. Now, types of intellectual property rights include copyrights, trademarks, patents, trade secrets, and industrial design. Next, we are talking about film financing. Now, film financing is very, very important when it comes to filmmaking, and funds are needed for the production stage, the pre-production and post-production stage, as has already been mentioned by our mentor. And obtaining the necessary funds to cover is very important to cover various aspects. Now, filmmakers, if they cannot fund their projects by themselves, they can get funds from various sources. The first one listed here is private investors or equity financing. Now, what this is when filmmakers go and meet private investors that, oh, hey, we have a film, we want to invest in it. And private investors will get like a share or a stake in the film in exchange for a return on investment. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. Private investors invest, and then when the film goes to box office, it makes money, they get their shares and they get their return on investment. Then we also have government grants and funding. Now, usually government gives grants and funds to filmmakers. In fact, it's also part of the national budget, the entertainment aspect of our national budget. Government is mandated to like grant funds to filmmakers who would want to like showcase their films and use the money for various aspects. I'm aware that the Nigerian Film Corporation and the National Film and Video Censors Board, they are very, very active when it comes to giving grants and giving funding to filmmakers. Then next we have bank financing and loans. Now, typical and very common type of getting funding is when filmmakers go to the banks and ask for loans, and the bank will have to assess the filmmaker, assess their credit, see if the movie that the filmmaker is asking for grants or for funds would actually be profitable. Would they be able to get their money, and not just get their money, would they be able to get their money in interest? So that's what banks will consider before they actually put their money into a film project. Then another method of financing, which is the last one I would discuss here because of time, is product placement and brand partnerships. When you watch movies or series, sometimes in the beginning of the series, you would see a brand, maybe it's a lip brand, skincare brand, or a wellness brand, and they would place the product first for people to see. That's brand partnership, and that's product placement. So in exchange for the film featuring the brand will give the producer money so that they can fund their projects. Okay, so we're going to talk about the next one is contractual agreements and film financing. Now, contracts, as we all know, are very important in any filmmaking. In the filmmaking industry, contracts are very agreement, and at each stage, a contract must always be drawn up from the pre-production stage down to the post-production, which involves, distribution and box office status. Now, the types of contractual agreements that are used in the filmmaking industry are investor agreements, which, as I've explained earlier, when investors put their money into a film, there would always be an agreement that would state, oh, okay, how much is this investor putting into the business? What is the investor going to get out of the film that is being made, and all that. Then we also have loan agreements, which is when a bank gives the filmmaker a loan for him to fund his project, and then a contract is usually drawn up for such agreements. Then we also have distribution agreements, which is usually during the post-production stage when this is usually during the post-production stage, and distribution houses will have to draw up agreements with filmmakers and vice versa on how the film is going to be distributed to which cinema. Is it going to be just a locally streamed movie, or is it going to be an international movie? Then we also have insurance agreements, which typically protects filmmakers, protects the actors and the members of the crew against risk, because like all professions in the world, there are risks that involved, and on sets, different things can happen. There may be an accident, an actor might be injured. So the insurance is supposed to cover that. Next slide. Next slide is collective management organizations. Now, collective management organizations are also very important when it comes to film business and law, and they are entities that are responsible for managing and administering certain rights on behalf of multiple rights holders. They play a crucial role in intellectual property, and like I said, they are very important when it comes to the Nigerian film industry. So the next slide will highlight a little bit on what they do. Now, some of the roles of collective management organizations include they are involved in royalty collection and contribution. Now, when music or sound is being used in the production process, or is being used in a film rather, when sound and music is being used in a film, the amounts of royalties that are going to be accrued, the amount of royalties that are going to be gotten, if the sound or music is going to be used in a brand commercial, in film, in streaming platforms. Now, CMOs are the ones that will collate this together and calculate it and see that these royalties go to the appropriate authors, go to the appropriate people that actually worked to make the music or the sound happen. Then they also negotiate license agreements and monitor use of copyright content. Now, their CMOs are the ones that are usually on the lookout for copyright infringement. So when a sound or when a book or something is used in an unauthorized manner, then they would be the ones to put the filmmaker who used the work on an unauthorized way in check. Then another role is that they engage in advocacy, education, and awareness activities for promoting IP rights. Now, you'd be surprised that a lot of people do not know a lot about their copyrights or their intellectual property rights. Now, CMOs come into play because they work together with stakeholders, with governments to inform the public that, hey, you have intellectual property rights and you can't just allow anybody to trample on them. So they work to educate the masses. Now, examples of CMOs include the Copyright Society of Nigeria and the Musical Copyright Society of Nigeria. Going to the next slide. Okay. Film distribution models. Now, film distribution models are basically the channels in which films are being distributed, or the channels in which films reach diverse audiences. Now, the first example of a film distribution model is the cinema, which we all know. This is where films get theatrical releases, and we get to watch these films in different cinema houses in Nigeria. That's the most common type of film distribution model. We also have the home video market. Now, I mentioned earlier that when we're growing up back then, we didn't have cinemas. We usually had CDs and we had DVDs. Now, that is one of the major film distribution models we have in Nigeria, whereby films will be going to direct to DVD and then circulated and sold in markets or in shops. And we also have paid TV and cable networks. Cable networks like DSTV, they usually stream or show movies on like African Magic or African Magic Showcase. Now that's a pay TV and cable network like DSTV, GoTV, StarTimes, and the rest. Another example is the theatrical on demand. Now, theatrical on demand is when there's not much cinema houses in a state or not much cinema houses in a location. Maybe there's just one cinema house servicing the whole of Ikeja, for example. So what that one cinema house would do is that if people demand for a specific movie, let's say they want to watch Avengers now, if people, they see that, okay, the populace loves Avengers now, they would go and get that movie so that it can be watched in that particular cinema for everyone to watch. Okay, so the next one is intellectual property infringement and enforcement. I've talked about what intellectual property is, and intellectual property is very important, and intellectual property infringement is a very significant issue that affects the film industry. And it doesn't just affect like IP rights holders as a whole, it affects filmmakers, it affects everybody involved in the production process. Now, examples of intellectual property infringement are piracy, which is the major issue that is in the Nigerian film industry right now. Piracy is when works are being distributed in an unauthorized manner. For example, when you go on the internet now and you search for a popular movie using all these fake and illegal websites like maybe NetNiger or Waploaded, almost all of us do it. So that is piracy, and that is one of the major things that are affecting the Nigerian film industry today. Then we also have plagiarism, which is using someone else's work verbatim without even crediting the person for their work. In the film industry context is when the storyline, the setting, location, everything looks like exactly like what another filmmaker has already produced. And that is a very, very big no for a filmmaker and should not be done. Filmmakers have to be original in their works because originality, whether people like to admit it or not, sells. Then we also have unauthorized merchandise, which is usually in films. To garner more money, filmmakers would maybe give clothing companies to make clothes, to make t-shirts, to make logos of the film or the characters of the film, or to imitate the likeness of the actors of the film and sell it to fans who are very dedicated to the film or dedicated to the film franchise. Now, to get these t-shirts or these logos done without getting the proper authorization is known as unauthorized merchandise. And this is reminding me of a case which I learned in school, which is Mirage Studios and Counterfeit Clothing, in which I don't know if anybody is aware of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's a Nickelodeon series. So the clothing brand Counterfeit Clothing, sought to make t-shirts that had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles directly on them without getting the proper authorization from Mirage Studios. And that was deemed to be unauthorized merchandise and they were fined for it. Okay, next slide. Okay. So we have legal remedies for copyright infringement. So obviously, when there's a wrong, there's a remedy. So if the IP rights holder, his rights have been infringed upon, what can he do? First of all, he can first write a cease and desist letter, which he can get his lawyer to do. And that's the first stage. And it involves informing the person who has infringed on his rights that, oh, hey, like you have infringed on my rights, like this is a notice, this is a warning that you need to stop what you are doing. Then you can also seek injunctions, which is to, again, stop the person who is infringing on his rights from further infringement. Then also damages, which could be actual, monetary, or exaggerated damages, depending on the level and the gravity of the infringement. Then we also have seizure and destruction rather of infringing copies. This is usually a court order. So the court will order that, oh, okay, in order to stop the further circulation of the unauthorized material, let's just destroy them so that they won't be circulated anymore. Let's give an order to destroy them. Okay, then. And now we're going to talk about the essential contracts in film business. Now, contracts are agreements which are drawn up between parties, and a typical contract must always have offer, acceptance, it must have intention to enter legal relations, consideration, and valid capacity. Now, the contracts that in the film business are various, and I'll just be highlighting a few because of time. We have the production agreement, which involves the cast and the agreement between the filmmakers and the cast and crew. We also have the location agreement, which is an agreement between filmmakers or the film house or the film distribution company and the owners of the locations that they are going to use and are going to be shooting at. Then we also have music license and composer agreement, which is usually between the filmmaker, film distribution company, and the person who is going to make the score, or the person who they're going to use their songs. Like if they're going to use Wizkid songs, Wizkid song, for example, they have to go and draw up an agreement with Wizkid and the people who are credited on the song before they can use it. Other agreements include insurance agreements, non-disclosure agreements, financing agreements, investment agreements, and release forms. So the importance of contracts in film business cannot be overemphasized, because contracts are necessary for first of all, for legal protection, because everyone needs to know their rights. Everyone has rights. Everyone needs to know their rights. And if these rights are being trampled upon, then they can get legal redress in courts. Then contracts are also good in film business for clear communication. Contracts need to be precise, they need to be clear, and they need to be understandable so that everybody knows their role, everybody knows their rights. Contracts are also good for professionalism and accountability, because let me give an example now. If a director is being unprofessional, or if an actor is being unprofessional, for example, if the actor is known for always coming late to work, or known for not showing up when he's supposed to show up, or not showing up when his agreement stipulates that he's supposed to show up, then that is a breach of his contract, and that's breach of accountability. And the director can, get a replacement actor if necessary for that. Then it's also good for dispute resolution. If maybe there's a squabble between the director and the crew, or there's creative differences between the producer and directors, then if a contract is being drawn up, then they can go to maybe the courts, or if they don't want to go to the courts to enforce this contract, they could use other methods like the alternative dispute resolution method. Okay, so we're going to the last slide, which is my concluding slide. So in our presentation as the first group, we've talked about copyright, we've talked about film financing, we've talked about how films can, like big budget and low budget films, can get finance whenever they need it. We've also discussed intellectual property. We've discussed the importance of contracts in filmmaking. And we've also talked about why there's need for for clear and precise contracts in production, pre-production, and post-production stage. Now, lastly, we advise that since financing is a good way for filmmakers to get the funds that they need for their projects, before they get loans, before they get this financial help from various platforms, they need to first consult a finance manager or consult their legal practitioner or their lawyer before they sign agreements. And not just financing agreements, any agreements in general, they need to consult their lawyers. So thank you so much to everyone for listening. This is the end of our presentation.
Thank you very much. Hello, Folakomi, for that wonderful presentation. Kudos to the whole team members for putting up their research for that presentation. Before we call on our mentor to give us comments on the presentation, we're supposed to be taking a picture time right now. We encourage everyone to put on their videos, to take some screenshots of this session for our LinkedIn posts. I know it's dark where some of us are where there's no electricity, so if we can just put on our videos for those of us that can, so that we take quick screenshots. Thank you very much. Okay, I've taken few screenshots. I'll be calling on our mentor to give us a review, comments on or any correction on the PowerPoint presentation, and we'll also be taking the questions that were sent earlier before the session. We'll also be asking the questions. So, Ms. Amanda, any comments on the PowerPoint presentation?
Okay, first of all, I want to say nice work. You guys did your homework. You guys did put in the work for the presentation. I was impressed and kind of covered all around in theory and to an extent in practical. So congratulations. I'm so proud of you guys for that. So I have a few things that I jotted down, some in form of questions, some in form of comments. So when I will just start from the beginning because I had like open. The first thing I mentioned was the intellectual property. That's when she was mentioning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. When she was mentioning the different types of intellectual property, so it would have been beautiful if you discussed or mentioned the ones that particularly pertain to the film industry. Copyright is like the biggest within the film industry. But there's still trademark and there's still trade secrets to go by physically in the film industry. So that'd be nice if you like shed a little bit light on that. Then when she mentioned brand placement, brand and product placement, you mentioned it in form of monetary gain. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I just want to expatiate that it's not every product placement deal that have a monetary gain to it. Some of product placement could be for free location. Some of product placement could be for maybe free drinks that will be used on the show. Product placement could come in form of maybe you sponsoring equipment rentals. It might not be exactly, oh, for this, we are going to give it just so million to support your production. So some of the product placements come in form of like a barter agreement. We'll give you this, we'll give you this. Oh, I'm going to place this product, or you're going to incorporate our brand into this, and in return, instead of you paying 150,000 or 1 million or this for your filming, we'll take care of it. We'll take care of your flight tickets or your accommodation for your crew members, or flight tickets for your crew members and cars that are going to SA to complete the shoot. It can come in different forms, not just monetary gain to the production itself. Another thing I wanted to mention was the agreement. You mentioned different agreements that will be needed under film financing, and he said here are some of the common contractual agreements and obligations in film financing. And I'm not to say that you didn't do a good job, but only number one and two pertains to film financing. So most times the financiers in the film industry are not people that are so active within the industry. Now it's co-production partners that these deals could pertain to, because if you have a co-producer or have a co-production company that is partnering with you, then definitely they want to engage in all of this, like know when the distribution agreement is being handled, or the producers through agreements, insurance, and all of that. But financiers just want for putting in this money, you have either advancement agreements, loan agreements. So depending on how the financier is coming, I'll just differentiate the loan and the investors agreement that usually use. Investors agreement is more like, okay, we put in this money and we'll be getting this as a percentage share from each time you exploit this movie. So if this movie goes to Netflix and Netflix pays $150,000 for it, you're going to get 20%. If this movie goes to Amazon Prime after 8 years on Netflix and they pay this amount to get this, that's an investment agreement. So like investment is continuous. Now loan agreements are more like, oh, I'm giving you 100 million to help your budget. When the movie is out, once you've done good numbers in cinema or it goes to a streaming platform, once your money comes out, once you start making money, give me back my 100 million with this percentage interest. So for film financiers, like I said, most of them are just there for the business. I put in this money and I'm expecting this in return. They really don't have any business with how the production is going, how distribution. They like do nonsense. What they need at the end of the day, they want their money or their investment. If you like don't insure it, what they need at the end of the day, if you don't do this, it's an agreement saying that they'll take you to court for not paying, or they'll take over the film or all that. It's production partners or co-producers that give themselves headaches about ensuring that all these other agreements, the distribution agreements, production service agreements, insurance agreements, are in place or handled within the production. Hope you got that. Then CMOs. It was very interesting to see. First of all, when I saw it yesterday, when I went through the slide, I was very interested to know the angle you're coming from. So CMOs are more useful to the music industry than the film industry. Filmmakers have little to no rights. And as whether I want to admit it or not, COSON and MCSN is not that active in Nigeria at the moment. But even when they are active, the part that they usually handle for licenses is not exactly you licensing songs. It's not exactly sync license. The ones they usually handle is all these blanket license because I'm running a club or a bar or a hotel or restaurant and I need license to play this music. License to radio stations, license to TV stations, license to DJs, license to advertisement companies. But film companies themselves, production companies themselves have little to no business with CMOs in the practical sense. Now, except in a situation where you produce a live album from the production. For example, this Obaranda is out. They already have the tracks on streaming platforms like like Spotify and all of this. You can listen to songs independent of the movie. Now, in such situations, you now need a CMO because you're distributing songs and you have to ensure that those songs are not going to be used without your permission or people are not going to infringe on your rights. So CMOs are more active within the music industry. Although at the moment, CMOs in Nigeria, these ones you mentioned, are not active. Instead, what people do is get involved with BMI, AFCON, AFCON, I think. I'm not sure the second one, but BMI and other international CMOs, because those ones are more active than COSON and MCSN. Like I said, when there's an original album that is being distributed or being made, or you had an artist that composed songs for the movies, for the movie or your production, what happens that CMOs are involved to ensure that this artist and the company actually get their royalties. But for film itself, typically the everyday film has little to no business with CMOs in Nigeria. It might be different in other countries. That's why I don't want to dispute the entire presentation for CMO. But at the moment in Nigeria, in practical sense, we have no business with them. Then you also mentioned film festivals and special screenings when you mentioned the film distribution model. So, like I said, you did your research well. So most of this is what is supposed to be. Now, in the practical sense, Film One is not going to send your movies to film festivals for you. Did you get? So most times, what happens, except if in a situation where, even if, like in all, I'm just trying to think back, I've not been in a situation where I said, oh, I want to give this to Film One and they're sending me to film festival. No, what happens is for those that have movies, most times they are short films or experimental movies. People that already have films and productions that they expect or they want to go to film festivals. What happens before you even start shooting the film? They already have all the festivals. Most of them will be looking at Oscar qualifying festivals. They have the festivals written down. They have the guidelines for the festivals, the type of duration they are looking for, maybe the type of movies they are looking for. They try to tailor their needs to it. Now they try to also tailor their shoot period, their post-production period, and when the movie is ready to fall within the period that they can actually submit, like within the submission phase or the submission period for the film festival. So this is usually done by the producers, the production companies, whoever made the movie. It's independent. Now, when they finish with film festivals and they are back, that's when most of them now get involved with distribution companies to now put it in cinema. Home video market is not a thing. It's no longer strong because there's a lot of piracy that goes on there. So let's say cinemas, digital online platforms, aviation platforms, that's also a branch. They have movies that they distribute to airlines to show on international flights. DVD, Blu-ray, most production companies don't like to be involved, except maybe you're dealing with talking about us about Nollywood people. But like standard Nollywood, standard practice in Nollywood, in the core Nollywood, Lagos Nollywood, Blu-ray, home video market is not like really looked at again. It's more of theatrical, it's more of streaming platforms and all of that. So yeah, I wanted to clear the film festival thing. Then also the last thing I wanted to mention was destruction. Okay, you said in the slides talking about IP infringement and legal remedies to IP infringement. So yes, cease and desist letters, yes. Injunctions, yes. Damages, yes. Accounting for profit, yes. Destruction of infringing copies doesn't really happen in the film industry. Instead, it happens more in the manufacturing and fashion industry. License agreement, okay. At the point of license agreement, okay, for music, yes. Litigation, legal actions, there's very little of those going on these days. So I wanted to just point out that destruction of infringing copies for legal remedies, as legal remedies for copyright infringement, not really, because you can't shoot a movie and I expect someone to destroy it, use it, burn it, or anything. Even injunctions are hard to uphold, because most times they always plead the case of if the movie is not making money, there's no way it can profit from it. You get? There's a certain situation where they've been trying to get across to you and they haven't. Then they feel, okay, if you get an injunction to actually stop distribution of this movie or stop this movie from showing on certain platforms, you force your hands to come and settle the matter. But destruction of infringing copies is not a practical thing within the film industry. So yeah, those are the points that I just wrote down. But like I said, this was a well put together presentation. Very very much theory, but there's still a little bit of practical. And this is nice. So nice.
All right, thank you very much, Miss Amanda, for those comments. I believe our mentees will take corrections and also take notes. We'll be taking a question before we end the session for today. I sent the question on the chat box, but I can see a mentee's hand is raised, so I will call on him to ask his question, his live question also. Daniel Ibikunle.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks very much, Ms. Amanda, for the presentation. I just wanted to address, where you mentioned something about how the film copies cannot be destroyed. I think from the context of our research, we're talking about, the merchandise. So, Falakini mentioned that, for instance, where you create make out of what's the name, out of a film, for instance. What happens is when you've not gotten permission for that merchandise that you have produced, can it not be destroyed? Did you get my question, ma'am?
Yeah, that's why I said that works for manufacturing. So merchandise falls within manufacturing and fashion. You get so okay. As you are saying, my mind even cuts across to another way that will work is the way they infringe on your movie. Let's just say it's not merchandise. Now for merchandise that will work because, like I said, it's manufacturing. Another way to work within the film industry is if it was infringed on in the distribution phase, and then you have CD in the market. It's almost like manufacturing. You have CD that you can seize and burn and destroy. Do you understand? If the court allows you to. Is that
Thank you
clear?
very much, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
All right, thank you very much for that answer, Ms. Amanda. So I'll be taking the questions now. I don't know if we still have time to take all the questions, but I will start from the first one. So it says, what is the process of obtaining film permits and license in Nigeria? What are the specific requirements and regulations that filmmakers need to be aware of?
Okay. So film permits and license, two different things. So film permit typically is the permit you have to collect from censor board or the right authority for you to film in a particular city. So in Lagos now, if you want to film, you have to obtain a film permit. And the process of obtaining a film permit, what happens is that you write a letter applying for a film permit. Within the letter, you're going to disclose what the film is about, whether it's a short film or a feature film or a series. You give synopsis for the movie, your shoot period, whether you're shooting for 15 days or for 3 months or for 1 month, then how many crew members, how many cast and crew will be on set. Now, if you have any foreigners on set, you need to disclose because they calculate the fee per crew member on set, and then foreigners have an additional fee. Like they can have a blanket fee now for crew, but if you have a foreigner on set, for each foreigner on set, there's an amount that you pay. So those are things that you disclose in your letter that you write applying for the film permit. Send to them, they send you an invoice, you pay for the invoice, they get your permit ready, and they send to you along with other guidelines like places you cannot film in, and places you need to take security to when you're filming and all of that. Now, film license, if I get what you're saying, I want to believe that you meant, and please correct me, you meant like the licenses that are used within the film. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if there are licenses that are used within the film, depending on type of license, it's an artwork license, it's a music license. The main thing, first of all, is tracking down the actual rights owner. Because then, in terms of music, sometimes it's not the artist that you know that owns the rights to the song. Sometimes the artists have transferred this right to someone else. Sometimes the artists have given someone else the permission to publish the song or the permission to do, like, give permission, put out sync license while they just get their cut. So first and first, track down the actual owners of any of the work you're trying to obtain license for. when you now do that, now start discussing it there. So discussion will basically circle around, oh, this is what it's for, this is the use for music, this is the duration, for artwork, this is the frame it was used in. If it's those that have like morality issues, they'll tell you, oh, they need to confirm that the song or the artwork or whatever you're taking permission for was not used in a scene that has nudity and all of that. So you just make everything clear to them, and then when you guys agree, okay, fine, yes, we want to give you this permission, but this is how much. If the fee is too big, you negotiate. Once you come to an agreed fee, you sign the license agreement over to them. Once they sign, you make payment, basically. License agreement sorted. Does that make sense? I'll move on to the second question.
Yes, ma'am. It makes sense. And I'll wait for the person that asked the question to also comment.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So you answer my question, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. The question 2 says, what does the distribution landscape for Nigerian film? Okay, how does the distribution landscape for Nigerian film industry differs from international film distribution models? That's like 2 questions. Then, are there any unique challenges or opportunities that filmmakers face when it comes to distributing their films locally and globally?
Okay, so this is more of a distribution question. All right. The first part of the question says if there's any difference between the landscape in Nigeria and the international. So because of streaming platforms have made their way into Nigeria, there's not much difference. Now, before the streaming platforms, we had very regimented and not the options we had were not like going to put our movies out there. We had just, if we're not going to cinema, if we're not putting out our movies on YouTube, then we're talking about maybe sending it out to CFTV and African Magic, or these paid cable channels and all of that. But with streaming platforms, there's little to no difference now. Now, the aspect that is a bit different is the fact that within the international market or the international industry, most producers or production companies still aim back end. Back end profits and money you make after your movie is already made. License fee, watch, any money that you make, any form of profit you make after the movie is out, that's back end profit. Now, the difference now is that the life of our international counterparts, when they have these movies on streaming platforms or have it on some cable channels, whenever the movie, or let's say streaming platform and cable channels want to pick it up, they get some form of payment. Some of them during streaming platforms each year, if the streaming platform reach a particular cap, a particular percentage, or a particular money that they've made, they get like, it's not in Nigeria what we do is give Netflix for 5 years or for 8 years, they pay us license fee once, and that is it. But most of people in the international market make this money on a continuous basis, like it's broken down. There's royalties, there are residual checks that are coming in, both for cast, both for producers, some crew members, for those that negotiated that. But in Nigeria, it's a give hands off situation till we're done. So I think that's different. But at the moment, we have the streaming platform, we're lucky enough to have more opportunities. Another aspect that it differs is that because streaming platform is kind of new and we want them more than they want us. Now, they want us, we don't get me wrong, in the actual sense, they want us because if they don't have Nigerian content on their platform, they won't do well in Nigeria. But you know how Nigerians are with new things. Whenever everybody's rushing it. So because of that, the license fees that paid to the international counterparts are way higher than what's paid to us. Way, way higher. You cannot even compare it. So, like I said, those are different. But the model itself, which I believe are the channels in which movies are being distributed, is similar. I wish there was someone that was more, because my own part is kind of like outside distribution. I'm looking at distribution from the outside. I wish there was someone that worked at one here that would probably answer the question. But from my own standpoint, there's no much difference at the moment between the two. The second thing that I said. And the second part is, are there any unique challenges or opportunities that filmmakers face when it comes to distributing their films locally and globally? I think is what I've mentioned. The fact that the money for the global front, the money that is being paid to them for licensing is way lower than what's paid to their international partners or international counterparts in this situation. And we have those are the two things I already mentioned. No back end, the money that is given as license fee, first of all, is way lower. So I think at the moment that's the things that my mind can go to, that the difficulties we're facing. There's a lot of trying to get them to accept the one certain markets. Although, like I said, when they come newly, like how Amazon Prime is now, we are at an advantage. And with Netflix, we're not really at an advantage. We have to prove to them. Another challenge I could say is more on the technical side now. Each of these streaming platforms have technical requirements for you to have your movies on their platform. So it's not every production company, every producer that has the camera specs or have the money to meet each of those milestones that they want. So that's a bit of a challenge, but we're coming to things. We have a lot of movies there, and we have people that are doing really well on the technical point of view. Hope that answers the question.
All right, thank you very much, Ma, for that answer. I'll be moving on to question 4. In Nigeria, do we have other laws aside the Copyright Act of 2004 and the Trademark Act protecting the rights of IP copyright holders?
We already know that we don't, but I just want to update that Copyright Act, and there's a newer version of Copyright Act. I think should be 2022, 2021, but there's a new Copyright Act. So you guys can read that one and update yourself. But at the moment, what we have is what we have: Copyright Act, Trademark Act, Patent, and should be Patent and Design Act. Those are just it. So, but then the little changes that came with the Copyright Act, we are moving bit by bit. We're moving small. Probably one day we'll have maybe, even if it's not an act or a law per se, but certain laid down documented rules that the entertainment industry per se is supposed to go by. By the moment, for intellectual property, protecting intellectual property, the ones we mentioned are the ones that we have. Then you can include Patent and Design Act.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. I'll be taking the last question for today. Can directors and producers share ownership in film business? And in that case, what party is entitled to bring a claim in instance of infringement of rights?
So at the moment, in practical sense, but in a good working system, it's possible. Now let's just imagine a situation where the producer and the director has some ownership rights in the movie. The ownership rights is going to have can never be more than the producer. So in the sense, the producer has more to protect. So when there's any infringement or any suit or any claim out there, it's the producer that goes to court, not really the distributor, not really the director. You get. But in the moment in Nigeria, it's a one-man movement. Production company owns everything down. Hires the producers get maybe some form of compensation, which hardly happens, or maybe some form of compensation or percentage of the license fee when the movie is being distributed. But aside that, it's just the production company and producer that owns it. So whenever there's an issue, whether you're looking for someone, whether you want to sue for infringement, or they have a claim against you, the producer or the production company that handles it.
All right, thank you very much. That will be all the questions for today. We just come to the end of today's session. A very big thank you to Miss Amanda Ozwagba for
Thank you, Mark.
sorry for pronouncing that wrongly. for mentoring us, giving us a lot of insights from her wealth of knowledge. Personally, I felt you've done the work of like 5 mentors for today, for taking all our questions and also giving us corrections and review on the PowerPoint presentation. And also a very big thank you to the team, the mentees that worked on the PowerPoint slides. I believe today's session was exciting and insightful, and I believe we still have more exciting topics ahead of us that will be taken in other classes. So, please, would love to have you on our other sessions if you are chanced. We'll be taking the mentorship session for 7 weeks, and we just started this week. So, same time next week, by 6 p.m. on Thursday. So, we hope you are available to join us. Thank you very much. So, that will be all for today. Bye bye, everybody, and have a good evening.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Ma.
Thank you, Mr. Hussein.